Whereas our first set of warm-ups, the structural, were more measurable and somewhat empirical, our second warm-ups are gestural, natural, and free, and that should loosen us up considerably. Straight lines can be defined as between 2 points, but our gestural lines are not going to travel in a straight path. The first ones being curves or arcs. Curves or arcs are going to be seen in hills and noses, elbows, boobs, and butts. We're also going to work on compound curves, or what's also known as an S-curve. We're going to work them in either direction. And every time you draw them, because they're natural, they're always going to be different. And finally, and later with shading, those will become spheres. Let's have a look at what these are going to look like on the paper. You can totally choose to draw the next shapes on the page previously so that you're not using more up, but for clarity of this video, I'm going to work on a new sheet. Now, a straight line between 2 points. We're going to create arcs. And for now, using your whole body, your wrist, your elbow, try to make them symmetrical, meaning the belly is somewhere in the middle. And then start to change the intention, the acceleration or deceleration. Because arcs aren't always equal down the center. Maybe they're wider to one side. We can also do these ones vertical. While I'm going to, I'm also turning my pencil to help keep it sharpened throughout. Otherwise you wear down a flat spot as you're going. So let's change the intention of the line now. Sort of the arc, the deceleration and the acceleration, so that it's not always symmetrical in the center. Every time I do these, whatever I draw looks a little different. But I try to keep my warm-ups interesting for me as well. Okay, so 1 point to the point with some sort of singular curve in between. And now we'll start doing our S-curves. And I like to think a little bit differently about the S-curve. I like to think of it as an eye tracking exercise. So even though it's a compound curve, every time I do it, it's a different S. Maybe this one today. Maybe it's like this. Maybe it's like this. Okay, so I have these compound curves, and what I want you to do is to slow down and draw the curve exactly the same. As you're moving down the line, you may notice that your hand is in the way of what you're drawing. So this helps improve your hand-eye coordination because you're looking ahead of where you're actually drawing. You need to see where you go. So I would try to draw the same line about 5 times. So, you know, you don't want to see this kind of thing going off the line. You want to stay on the line, tracking your hand and eye coordination. So just keep going and practicing this line. Know your limitations of where you're blocking your eye. Then, I also want you to find out, what is it if you go the other direction? What is that like? There's no right or wrong having to always go from the top to the bottom. Go from the bottom to the top, but try to keep it smooth and try to keep it the same. Maybe you switch how you're holding your pencil throughout, and also the speed in which you have to go. You'll notice I slowed down a lot doing that line because I'm trying to get accuracy. So I have to go a lot slower. When I'm first making the line, I can be quite free. But humans are very bad at judging curves. We're much better at judging straight lines. Another way to think about this is that it's made up of a bunch of straight structural lines. Kind of like 1970s string art. Okay? So I want you to copy it. Then I want you to do it with your opposite hand. So let's see how I do here. Copying the exact same compound curve or S curve. That's going to feel a little bit weird, but part of this is to realize that you kind of need to be ambidextrous a little bit. I tend to hold, when I'm drawing, my eraser in my non-dominant hand and work with both. Sometimes I'm holding two pencils, but I want you to do that because you're also going to create new neural pathways in your brain. Really, you're problem solving with the opposite hand, and by doing that, when you go back to it with your dominant hand, it tends to be a lot easier. It's like you're rehearsing over and over again. So I want you to practice S curves, not just this direction, but also try to do the S curve the opposite way. So it's a curvy Z, let's say. So these tend to be some of the more complex lines, but what we're going after is the eye tracking. So do that a number of times, do it with your opposite hand, do it in different directions. Now by doing that, we've become really, really tight. So I want you to sit back up again, and I want you just to do like a 4-leaf clover kind of doodle, where you just loosen up your shoulder again. We want to stay loose. So this kind of crappy spirograph, okay? Before you do the final shape, which is our circles or spheres. Now there are a bunch of areas and spaces around, and I want you to learn to control the size of your circle. So inside spaces, draw different size circles. Anywhere that you can make them fit. You can go over and ghost a little bit, like this. So you have a very light touch. Try to get different sizes. We'll use the circle all the time when drawing a cranial mass for a skull, but depending on how far the model is or what position they are in, or how big you're going to draw them, you're going to have to be able to draw these in all different sizes. So it's really good to practice your circles of all different spaces and sizes. You'll also notice that I'm going clockwise and counterclockwise. Just get yourself into a comfortable rhythm. So that's it for now. So that's it for this round. Let's go to the next section. Okay. So the first warm-ups, structural and gestural, make up what I call shape. And that's the first fundamental in the hierarchy of importance of art. Getting the shape of something correct. Continue on by taking your shapes and adding value in order to create the illusion of three-dimensional form on a two-dimensional surface. Continue on in the next video of understanding light. We'll see you there.